Hello and welcome to Dave and Mickey's Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. It's home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room and a place to get your merch. Now, why don't you go to the chat room right now? We are there, Dave and I both. Mackie, clearly, and that is... Dave?
Yes?
Yes, that's him. There you go.
Oh, there I am.
There he is, and he's in the chat room as Narara.
Yes.
This is show number 465, 560, and 400. Almost 5. Catch us on air, online, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed the show with Giuseppe Vaffancalo, he has a show on Revolution Radio as well.
Great show.
And me. I actually caught the last bit of it.
Yeah.
It was really very interesting, and he's a very eloquent kind of person, and he's got like 4 shows going or he's involved with.
Wow.
On Revolution Radio, which is pretty cool. So if you have missed it, don't despair. No, it's okay. Put the tissues away. You can, for a measly $5 a month, you can access the Freedom Slips archives and check out her shows, and you should. She really is quite an extraordinary host, a researcher, author, documentary film producer, experiencer of all kinds of mysteries. And look, you really have to look her up and look her stuff up and see what she's done. It's really awesome. So please go ahead and find Solaris' show and subscribe while you're at it. Now, before we get into the meat of it, we would like to spend a couple of serious minutes acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land. For me, here in Pemmel Way, it's the Rug people, and for Dave,
the 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐶.
Thank you, Dave. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Not a gimmick, but rather an acknowledgement of 80,000 plus years of continuous habitation prior to, and I have to say it this way, the white man's arrival, because it was the white man that claimed it. Terra Nullius. No one here. I'm just grabbing it. I'm planting the flag. It's mine. Thank you very much.
But sir, there's people everywhere.
There's people everywhere.
Oh, they're just parts of the flora.
Fauna. That's right.
Flora.
Nope, they're fauna.
Fauna.
They weren't.
Yeah.
No roots. No leaves.
They're not. They're animals. Animals. I say.
Yeah, but until the 70s, believe it or not, in 1970s, not 1870s. Aboriginal Australians were considered to be part of the fauna, and as we've pointed out before, the turn of the century, the 20th century, so from the 19th to the 20th century, early 20th century, people were still keeping other people in zoos, because that's what we do. It's odd. It's different, Dave. Let's put it in a zoo.
We're keeping them in zoos. That's nuts, isn't it?
It's nuts. It's nuts. I just have a... Sorry, before I launch into it, I just saw a question from the chat room, just to prove a point that we are looking at the chat room here.
Yes.
What kind of name is Mackie? It's mine. That's...
What's
Thank
my
you, Dave.
Response?
That's perfectly cromulent indeed. No, it's a nickname. It was it's a compound nickname based upon the German I guess a fairy tale character, Mackie the porcupine, and also I
didn't know.
Yeah, also a homage to Mac the Knife, which in German, the original Brechtian, opera was called Mackie Messer.
Mac the Knife.
Yeah, because
the song that I'm familiar with.
That's the one. It's from the Drei Groschen opera.
No.
It's by Bertolt Brecht, and like I said, in Germany it's Mackie Messer, and I used to carry a pocket knife with me at all times.
Oh. Poetic.
Always be prepared. So that's what kind of name it is. But yeah, look, it has been a rather interesting week. Not surprising, but interesting.
Mm.
And we might as well jump in the thick of it. It's really. Look.
What are we going to start with?
Was there a case to impeach Trump?
The acquittal.
you could argue, yes, maybe. I looked through all the transcripts. He never asked anyone to do anything violent per se, not actively, right? You can misconstrue it, and people certainly took it that way. I guess some were agitators. I still have my doubts as to whether everybody who stormed the Capitol building was in fact a Republican or even a Trump supporter. I mean, they're always agitators and crowds. That's politics. That's the craft. You know, that's what they do. It's been done for thousands of years, for crying out loud. I mean, the Roman Republic was rife with it.
Affectionately known in the business as rent-a-crowd.
Rent-a-crowd. Yeah, we'll give them a couple of dreadnoughts and a knife and
corn, oil and wine, Mickey.
Oil and wine.
In the olden days, right?
The olden days. But look, it's just nuts, right? Because I understand what they're trying to do, but they've had it in for Trump from the start. Donald Trump, or the ex-president Donald Trump, the former president, has had a hard time from the start. Everybody was after him for various reasons. He was never part of the establishment. He's a misogynist. Yes, he's probably not the nicest person on the planet. But so what? He was elected, right? And he lost this election by, if you subscribe to that theory, he lost the election by a very narrow margin. So you could argue that Biden doesn't really have a very strong mandate. Okay, just to be clear, just to see where we are, right? And it's not even talking about having an election being stolen or anything like that, right? Of which there seems to be some indications, and people say, oh well, if there were something fishy, then it would have gone to the courts. Well, so this is. I'll let you talk about this in a second, Dave. I know you're burning to do, but if you have everything in your pocket, right? If you have everything in your pocket, I don't know if you do or don't, but let's say everything, like you got the legislative, the executive, right? You've got it all, the judiciary, it's all in your pocket. Then it doesn't matter what kind of evidence you bring, right? Because the media you own already, it's against you. I suggest everybody watches Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. You schlafen mit einem Messer,
yes.
Yep. Go and watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. We don't make movies like that anymore.
No.
And if you haven't seen it, it is really critical. Jimmy Stewart, all-American, good guy, I guess.
Yes.
And you must see it. We don't make movies like that anymore. All right. In a nutshell, it reflects completely and perfectly just what's going on in the world today. Even though it was made, I think, in the 30s or 40s, Dave. I'm gonna lie here.
Yeah, look, I'll look it up. Just keep rolling.
But what do you think about the developments, though?
Oh, goodness me. Yeah. So, as Mickey can attest, and the listeners also know, but if you're new to Shiny Side Out, I have about anywhere between 12 to 20 different news outlets, and I can see similarities everywhere. But what's really kind of disturbing here with the acquittal is how the media is playing out the post-acquittal. I don't care about the process. Everyone's a commentator. But how do you rest? Let's put it that way. How do you rest on the outcome? Because that's really important. So, as we know, the former president has been acquitted, and this is concluding the Senate impeachment trial. It was 57 to 43. That isn't, 44 to 43. That is 57 to 43, and there's a majority that voted. They had to have 2/3 majority to win. That's what they needed to do. So there you go. That's all done and dusted now. Despite it being initially, at the onset, it was not constitutional because you can't impeach someone that's already left office. However, there was a vote initially at the beginning, early part of the trial, to say, do you accept it to be legitimate to continue? And that passed. So the Senate declared that it was okay, despite it being not constitutional. What the hell? We'll hear it anyway, right? What the hell? Anyway, so I've been watching two of the main channels, and we all know who they are. They're CNN, Fox, and they're clearly the most left and most right outlets of media that I can find anywhere on the planet to do with US, politics, for instance. So there's a lot in the middle that claim to be in the middle that really aren't. They're swinging one way or the other, and it's kind of disturbing. So this polarity created by the left and the right news outlets actually astounds me, Mackie, completely to my core. That they maintain themselves because of their audience they've got to feed their demographic with information to hold their audience.
Well,
that's what they do.
Well, look. What you do is you create an audience, right? So you create people that and then confirmation bias will bring you more people like it.
That's right.
And
you can go extreme, and you'll keep dragging those people who are kind of center over to your side.
And look, that's right. And the thing is this: and once you might start you might even start.
Could be benign.
Yeah. Well, but then you go. I really believe that more than the other one, right? So, it radicalizes you. It's a much maligned phrase, I guess, these days, radicalization. But people do get radicalized, and I tell you what, Dave, this really worries me. And then I will just answer a quick thing in the chat room. Hey, Joe Bear, how you doing, buddy? I will give you the English version in just a second. But ultimately, for the first time this week, on the mainstream media. I was watching the drum, actually, ABC News, the drum. It's sort of like a panel. Think of it as a panel interview. It's usually quite interesting, actually.
I watched it too, yeah.
Yeah, and this week they had two expatriate Americans. They both live in Australia. One was an academic, I think a political scientist, and the other lady, I think she was a biologist. Anyway, look, they're both living here, and clearly they're, some.
I saw the COVID end to that discussion. Yep.
Yeah, they're sort of renowned. I guess academics here. So whatever. The point is, for the first time, the lady did it first, and she was quite taken aback, and she was quite emotional. She goes, for the first time ever, I don't think I would be able to. Yes, below us I will, wherever that might be. I'd like to go home. By the way, that's. In fact, listen to it. That's what the show, The Hypothesis, is all about.
But you work from home, Mickey. So
that's, I know,
there you go.
But the point here is that it's really it was really quite an interesting thing. She said that she can't see the country heal. She can't see it come to a successful conclusion. You can't see Biden obviously unite the country, a much divided country. And she spoke about civil war. She said civil war. She said those words on national television in Australia.
You're crazy, right?
And then and the other gentleman, the political scientist, also American, but again expat, said, I completely agree with you. And I think civil war is very much on the cards. Now, we've been talking about this for some time now, obviously, Dave and I.
Yeah.
And in fact, we pinpointed 2020 as the year of extremely great upheaval. And we did this many years ago. You can go back to our shows and check it. There's a background story there, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the hypothesis at show number 500. So, but it's the first time mainstream media picked that message up. So there are a whole bunch of messages, Dave. Sorry to digress, but I'll give it to you.
No, that's actually a good lead up.
There's a whole bunch of messages that are coming through right now. American Civil War, certainly that's one of them, right? But the other one, which is somehow getting lost a little bit in this, is disclosure. And not just disclosure of the year of all phenomenon, but disclosure across a whole spectrum of different things. Right, and it is sort of lost in this political quagmire we've got ourselves into here, and it's also lost, of course, in the whole COVID-19 situation. It doesn't matter if you think there's a virus. It doesn't matter if you think this is a pandemic, which I do. It doesn't. None of this matters. What matters are the news cycles and how fearful the people have become, and what they're willing to give up. Right? If you think 9/11 was a thing that made people fearful, this is the
world beater. It's affected everyone on the planet.
100%.
Yeah, completely. So the thing that in line with Mickey's quotes from the lady on the show that we were watching on the ABC, there's a polarity that's been created by the left and right that's polarizing everyone in the US. And I have to say, because it astounds me, I want to tell you why. And this is because Fox doesn't, for the first time, Fox does not seem to be bragging on the outcome at all. They're not, they don't have anti-CNN banners and having their own marches in the street or doing anything at all that I can see. For the first time, they've moved on. They've kind of said, you know what? Well, that's done now. So what's coming up next? Oh, and then they went into a full, 3-hour thing about the COVID bill coming up that needs to be attended to, and then the reasoning for not viewing all, just inside the case, viewing all the witnesses, but they did accept during this the Senate trial to accept as read one of the statements from one of the witnesses, but said, you know what, we've got a ton of witnesses. If you like, if you want to see them, let's see them all. We can't see just the one. But they accepted and all agreed together. So it became almost a partisan thing. No more bipartisan. This was partisan agreement. Let's just move on. Great. And it became an actual conclusion that Trump was acquitted. By that, there was still lawyers working on behalf of the evidence to speak to the Senate trial. However, there isn't a single judge and there's no jury. The voting jury, I suppose, is the Senate themselves, but it's not impartial people there. They have something. They come in kind of predetermined with an outcome. However, 5743 tells you a different story. It says people who stood on precedents and stood on, were very tight to the rules, that everything had to be done by the book. It said something. Those people who, and I'll get to those in one more second, those people, the other people, like the agitators, going, oh, I want his head on the pike, right? They numbered the 43. I think this is, when I was watching the trial, Mackie, it was quite clear there wasn't any actual evidence to say that he was guilty of incitement.
No, right? It's the intent.
There wasn't. That intent could not be improved. That's right. But the statements that when they cherry picked all the other ones, I found it was quite simple. If you read the entire sentence from the transcripts, which Mackie and I have, you could see that then very after the comma where they ceased their statement, it went on to talk about a peaceful event. There wasn't a continuation of that. Aggravation of the crowd. Let's go and cheer on our brave senators. That's right. Etc. That's what he said. Yeah.
Let's go and cheer them on.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, what he wanted is for them to fight in his favor. I mean, come on, right? I get it, but he did not say go and burn down the Reichstag. No,
that's right. That's right.
That would be a bad thing.
So, but in contrast to Fox's "Let's Move On," CNN has not let up on the guilt of Trump. And they want to pursue him in a civil court.
They can't.
They cannot. And this is what they're saying. They're going, oh, we're going to have the states sue him, right? And all the people that they're making, this is how they're doing it, right? So they're attaching the deaths of the people and those families and that emotional connection. Remember about emotional connections? Mm-hmm. It's all about emotion.
Of course.
So you can show someone an image of something that's truly abhorrent. Later on, have that connected to a current event, and you're already bought in. So that's why I thought it was quite clever to mention this. So, and this is my question here. People wonder why the population is polarized. But it's clearly the media. And it seems to be the left that is still the angry mob with torches and pitchforks in a Simpson-esque vision, still looking for more witches to burn.
But why do you think that is? There's a very simple reason for this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, let's go back to the election.
Yep.
Forget this whole election stealing thing, whatever. Let's look at the officially accepted numbers, right?
Mm.
Very close. We've never had this many people turn out.
Both were records.
In the States, ever.
Yep.
Never, ever. Like 150 million odd people voted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so no sitting president, right? And no president-elect has ever gotten this many votes. So Joe Biden and Trump both have
they both broke records, yes.
Yeah, like completely, right? Now, next election, I have no idea what's going to happen in the next 4 years. You can't undo the coronavirus damage or whatever this thing might be that it has done to the economy, the world economy, U.S. economy, etc. Other things as well that play into it, and the deep divide that has clearly been shown by this voting result. In my opinion, can't be fixed in 4 years. Now, if it can, great, awesome. But in 4 years' time, which they go by fast.
They zoom
fast. Yesterday that Donald Trump was elected to be president, and I thought, remember what we said? I remember very clearly what I said. I said, whatever you expected with Hillary Clinton, with Donald Trump, you have no idea what you're going to get. I said
That's right.
There's just nothing in
It's
the
a
rule
mixed
book.
bag or a grab bag of ideas.
Completely.
Yeah.
It was going to be a new thing, but the Americans wanted a new thing at that point, right? And it's important. It is important. Why is this important? Why do we spend so much time talking about this in Australia? Who cares, right? No, we care because America still is probably the most important country in the world for a number of reasons, okay? And let alone militarily, but certainly from an economic point of view, culturally speaking, since the end of World War II, America has really led the world in many ways, right? I mean, there was conflict with Russia or the USSR, which America was victorious in, one would argue. And now there's a new conflict with China, which is a very different kind of conflict, very different kind of Cold War. But ultimately, America is a symbol. It's an idea. It's a thought. Bacon called it the New Atlantis, right? And so it's really this idea that a sovereign people can just be that, a sovereign people. No monarch, no head of, no king, no queen, nothing. Just the people doing the people's thing. And for a long time, it's not easy. It was hard. It still is hard. But I think it's been subverted. It's been the banks, the elites have managed to turn that dream into a nightmare for a lot of Americans. And I think that we're seeing the end results now. A lot of the Americans can no longer partake in the American dream. You had a lot of energy in America, right? In America, you could really make it. There's this frontier spirit. Did people suffer? Sure. Were there injustices? Absolutely. But ultimately, there was no king per se or queen in charge of it all, right? That changed over the course of the 20th century, certainly after World War II, where all of a sudden you saw these oligarchical families take control, right? More and more. The banking wars were lost in the 19th century. They were lost. America lost the banking wars, okay? The banks won. And the beautiful experiment that America was soon turned into, well, not such a nice experiment. And now people are waking up to this. Why does a single mother, have to work 3 jobs just to pay the bills? 3 jobs, minimum wage. And she's not lazy. It's not her fault that the economy is what it is, and maybe she was disadvantaged. Maybe she grew up in a poor neighborhood, but she's working 3-4 jobs. Is she lazy? No. Is she giving up? No. Right?
Whereas other people are born would immediately call you a socialist for wanting that kind of change.
I know, but see,
I know.
Some people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and they have done nothing to merit any of the things that are given to them. None. Even Donald Trump himself, he was born to a millionaire father. He didn't make himself. In fact, he had failing businesses one after the other. Okay, Joe Biden, a career politician, right? I have a real problem with people that are career politicians because they're parasites, as far as I'm concerned. And then you've got a whole bunch of people, all the old families, old money, where the people they've already the legacy, Ivy League school attendance. That's where they're going to go, like the Bushes, for example, right?
Son went to West Point.
Absolutely. Going right back to Prescott Bush, who worked for the Harriman brothers, cleaning Nazi money. But there's a history there. There's a history there. That's astounding, and the people just ignore it. You don't want to hear about it. The OSS, right, which then turned into the CIA with the help of all the Nazi survivors, I guess. They turned the OSS into the CIA. So, if you think that Germany lost the war, think again.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So paperclip, Mickey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But look, I don't want to go too far afield. But the problem here is, of course, to answer the question why this is important, they can't let him run again.
I know they're attempting in all costs to prevent him from doing it. Yeah. But now, since he wasn't impeached. He wasn't found guilty of in the impeachment trial.
But the impeachment would have prevented him from running again. But now they said, and this is why was it CNN can't let go. Now I think they want to try it on in criminal court.
Yeah, that's right. Now, if you have a conviction, you can't run either.
If you get a felony conviction, you cannot run for public office.
Yeah, I know. I get that, and that's where I knew you'd picked up on. So, yes, completely, and I think that's the drive. But it's relentless, and like I said, I'm kind of convinced that they didn't like him, they don't like him, they're never going to like him. And they're hell-bent on destroying any chance that he has. They tried to get him out twice, and there's a really funny meme where Trump rings up Pelosi and say, "Hey, it's Owen." She goes, "Owen who?" And he says, "Oh, and 2." It's very funny. So naught for 2 attempts. No, sorry, I can't help it. I love memes, and I've just run a bunch of the memes of the week. If you're watching this on YouTube, so Mickey, the virus, I've got to say, there is declining numbers.
No, they're apparently declining numbers.
Okay, so I want to avoid conflict and suggest that the numbers that I'm referring to are the confirmed cases where people were inspired enough, either through government direction, to come and get tested, or they felt ill enough to want to do something about it, or were admitted to hospital outside of their own control and then tested. They're the numbers that I know that we have. Now, outside of those numbers are people that couldn't be bothered to get tested, but had the sniffle or whatever, right? Sore throat, loss, any of the symptoms, loss of taste. Those people who are afraid to go and get tested because that'll cripple their ability to earn money. And especially people who are living hand to mouth. Those people who were turned away from hospitalization, or the queue was too long and went, doesn't matter, right? Or just simply those people who are asymptomatic, who don't even know they've got the virus, let alone the people who aren't in a position to be able to be tested because there's no testing facilities anywhere near them. So outside of, excluding that whole secondary group there that I mentioned, what I've discovered is a decline since New Year around the world of the confirmed cases only. I want to be very precise there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. And so in the countries with numbers that are in decline, in the top 21 countries, for instance, what I did, I counted them all up. And this is the top 21 countries, for that matter, are those who have confirmed infections of 1 million or greater. And so those in decline are the US, India, UK, but we can talk about India later. Russia, Spain, Germany, Colombia, Argentina, terrible accent, Mexico, South Africa, and Indonesia. Those who have a linear increase, which are the only ones currently that are increasing flatly, there's no extra spread being discovered. So every day it's the same quantity that they're finding. Brazil, France, Italy, Turkey, Poland, Ukraine, Netherlands, and needless to say, these numbers and directions can change at any minute. And the increasing cases are around Peru and Czechia. So India is the big worry, clearly, Becky, between
India
you and me.
As far as I'm concerned, it's just a
big
gigantic nuclear weapon. That's what
It's a big soup of virus. But not all of these countries are in the northern hemisphere, which is what I'd originally suspected. And I think I've got a graph here showing, I do, new case graphs. So for those people looking on YouTube, you can see these examples, and they all show a decline. Now, not all these countries have mandatory masks or lockdowns currently, and they're still in decline. And I'm kind of wondering, if this is the case, I know there's still 169 countries or whatever it is that's infected, and it could be, very much worse than the numbers are actually showing. But imagine, Meki, just for a minute, if all of this, all the vaccine thing, all this global worry was for naught. Imagine if the virus naturally petered itself out. If that was truly what was happening, I don't know. Because the virus can run out of patience because it's killed too many people, or it kills them too quickly, and you don't get to infect someone else, or it just becomes really hard to transmit. It's another thing. It can still be terribly lethal, like the Ebola is actually on the rise now. But out of all the different instances of what a virus can do and what we're currently seeing now since New Year, I wonder, Mickey, because now we're seeing the new strain. Oh, let's keep up the fear, if that's what it is, right? The vaccines have to be had. We've all got to have them, and I still ask why, because it doesn't stop you spreading it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was looking at the differential also between the efficacy rate and the virus's own ability to do damage long term, or death.
Mm-hmm.
And getting the virus is actually a little better than having the vaccine. Is that crazy?
To be clear, very clear. Now, this is completely scientifically proven. The city of Manaus in Brazil, very large city, the biggest city of Brazil in the Amazon basin, away from the coast, right? Hard hit by this virus, hard hit, right? One wave and then a second wave. Now, the funny thing is this. Scientists believed, with some statistical evidence, etc., that about 80% of the Manaus population had COVID, or this virus. 80%.
80.
Now the funny thing is this. When you hit that magical 80% or higher, you have now reached herd immunity. And hey presto, the second spike occurred, the third spike, no, I don't know. But certainly the second spike. So herd immunity is not a thing with this virus. So
no, it's not.
If herd immunity is not a thing, then the dispensation of the vaccine is completely pointless. Because what you do with a vaccine is you want to create herd immunity. Meaning, if enough people are immune to the disease, right? It just
can't find new patients.
No, it stops in its tracks. It's like a fire that has like these fire
breaks.
gaps. Fire breaks, right? Yeah. It's the same thing. So think of it as a fire break. Now, there's no fire break for this thing because it didn't stop the second spike, the second wave. Now, another thing that is here, they're now discussing, as they've pointed out, the efficacy, not the effectiveness, it's a specific medical term, efficacy of this virus, of this vaccine, in light of the new strains.
That's right.
And they may not be effective.
They're saying it's less and less and less. I heard 73% efficacy in this new one.
And there's a much more worrying thing, right? So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the TV show called Utopia. There's now an American version of it. They had 2 or 3 seasons in England, in the UK. If you haven't watched that show, I highly recommend it. It's the UK version. Yep. Watch the UK version. Mm-hmm. Now this is from 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐴𝐥𝐿.𝐸. Okay, men. I'm just going to read you the abstract. Okay, and this is a scientific study that was published Friday, January 29th, 2021, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, right? Friday, January 29th, 2021. Okay. Peer-reviewed, yes, it was reviewed, scrutinized by relevant independent experts, blah, blah. So this is a peer-reviewed study. Abstract. And this is where I'm going to go with something with this. COVID-19 may negatively affect sperm quality and reduce fertility in men, according to German research. The study of 84 men with confirmed COVID-19 and 105 healthy controls found that in men with COVID-19, markers of inflammation and oxidative stress in sperm cells were significantly increased by more than 100%. The pathways that facilitate sperm cell death were also activated, and sperm concentration was reduced by 516%. Mobility by 209%, that's slow sperm, and sperm cell shape was altered by 400%. The authors say these effects on sperm cells are associated with lower sperm quality and reduced fertility potential. Although these effects tended to improve over time, they remained significantly abnormally higher in the COVID-19 patients, and the magnitude of these changes were also related to disease severity. So the sicker you are, the more likely this affecting
That's
sperm.
Correct, yes.
So take a step back. What I just said, this is a thing. It's a thing. Now, this virus is like a slow release time bomb or slow time release kind of effect.
The long COVID.
Yeah, long COVID. It made a lot of people sick. Quite a few people died. Percentage-wise, 4 or 5% maybe. Yeah, not a lot. Not to worry. Not something that really worries you, but really old people. So that solves someone's problem. But it also now affects fertility. Now, Agenda 21, population reduction, etc.
Absolutely comes to mind straight away.
It's not. See, this is always. It's always bothered me. I just couldn't. I didn't think that they would just kill off 7.5 billion or 7 billion people or whatever it might be, right? And just one go. It doesn't make any sense because everything would collapse, right? So
prevent replication.
These players are thinking in terms of millennia and centuries. They lay their plans and they wait hundreds of years and thousands of years for these plans to unfold. So I was always. And then I watched Utopia and this was a very interesting show. But now in real life, there's this virus which is affecting a lot of people. A lot of people get it. It's like the flu. Everybody eventually will probably get it, or 90% even, right, of the world's population. And now it seems that it has the long COVID effects David just mentioned, and one of those effects clearly is a problem with male fertility. Now, if we reduce male fertility significantly, there won't be any more births. There just won't be any more children being born. And over the next 2 or 3 generations, the world's population may very well fall to
500 million,
billion, 500 million, whatever it might be, right? Because people will die, right? People will die, and then they're not replaced by anyone. Now, this is something that we will only see over the long term. Right? We can't make any judgments on this now, but the longitudinal effects of this will become visible over the next 20 or 30 years as birth rates decline. Okay? Now, this is already happening in the first world nations, right? Anyway, hence the million Syrians into Germany, but it is now something that can very well affect the African continent, South America, the Indian subcontinent, most of Asia, where, and the funny thing is this, those are the guys that are not getting any vaccines either. Okay, so they will get the worst disease if they get sick.
Yeah.
Okay, they will get sicker, and that, like I just said, the disease severity is directly related to the magnitude of those sperm changes.
Yeah. So yeah,
Makes sense?
yeah, completely. And you know what? There's the thing that I've found that's associated with this. With the vaccine is vaccine hoarding by the large nations. They're buying between 2 and 3 times the quantity required to vaccinate their own people. And in an excuse that I heard, which I thought was simply an excuse, because if you have 23 million, you buy 23 million, the double dose, the full doses, and you think, you know what, that's it. Isn't it? Well, no, actually, you buy 50 million in Australia, and in Britain, they've bought 3 times as much vaccine. And one of the things, Mekki, that I thought was really interesting about this, because I wanted to discuss I want you and I to better discuss this, and why. So, the first thing here is it to cope with this coming year's refugees? As food crises occurs, and we have a lot of people migrating around, that was one of the things that I thought of. And the other point is that I don't know which one you want to contribute to more, and that is the hoarding also to dispense the vaccine to poor neighbours, and that was what was bandied around in that the panel thing I watched on the ABC. The poor nations can't afford it, so the larger nations buy it and then donate it or trade it, use it as a tool for the poorer nations.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. No. If as a politician, if North Korea could do it and China could do it, why? Because they don't care what the people think. Okay, I don't care. I do
That's
whatever.
True.
Everybody else, any politician, be it Scotty from marketing or even Biden here now. Or any of the German or French or whatever leaders, UK leaders, if they had the vaccines and gave them to the poor nations rather than their own constituents, and then those constituents continue to die or whatever, do you think they would be elected back into power?
They won't be around the next time. No,
I really don't think so.
No,
don't think so.
But it's got a shelf life, Mekki. So you can't just hoard it.
No, you can't.
It sounds preposterous.
No.
So there must be an immediate use within the usable lifespan of the vaccine, where they're going to need that quantity.
Yes.
Otherwise, the government's not going to buy it if they don't need it. Correct. Makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Except
because our problem is we're oversubscribing the manufacturing. And that's locking out other people now.
The thing is this, even let's say tomorrow everybody woke up an altruist, right? And we give everybody what they need or whatever. And do I want to take this vaccine at this point? No, I really don't. But that's me.
I'll always volunteer for the Pfizer one. I think that's the right one for
possibly
me. Because I've made a choice.
Yeah, but in the third world, And when I say third world, it's a generic term, obviously referring to undeveloped or underdeveloped nations. The problem is storage and distribution. For various, and not just because they haven't got refrigeration facilities, and even don't forget about the crazy minus temperatures, right? Even normal refrigeration is an issue in some of those countries. But on top of that, you've got conflict. There are a lot of conflict zones in those areas where the rebels or the freedom fighters, what are you going to call them, right, will disrupt potentially.
Completely. Imagine UN vehicles with vaccine will just get bombed or shot at or robbed.
Yeah, probably more likely than anything.
That's right.
The ultimate thing here is that it'll be, and these are issues. Forget about getting the vaccine, but once you have it, those are the issues facing you, right? This is not everybody's going to sing "Kumbaya" and let's all share the vaccines. Not at all. Right now, if a warlord were, look at this, like Dave said, there's a convoy of UN trucks. I want those. Thank you very much. What's in it? I don't care, but I want it. So it's a real problem, because we're living in a very unequal and really unfair world in many ways, right? Yeah. So we can argue about the storage facilities and cold storage, etc. For the first world nations. They bought too much. They bought so many that only a few, and I mean a few doses, not hundreds or thousands of doses, but a few doses are left for the third world, where arguably this will have the greatest impact, and it will also have the greatest impact from a fertility point of view. I mean, Bill Gates must be just happy as a pig in mud right now. Think about it.
Completely. I 100% agree. See, where those conversations took place that this was the objective, where our governments failed to keep our borders closed, they all become complicit in the outcome. Yeah. The reason that we're not going ahead and saving everybody on the planet, apparently, and it seems to me that it's all to do with the Great Reset, Agenda 21. That's what it appears to be at the surface. There might be something completely different going on, but at the moment, that's the best evidence that we've got. It's kind of sad to think that if we had to buy that many, what's going to happen that's going to have that many refugees, like the doubling of our nation, Mekki, for instance, in refugees.
Oh, doubling, yeah. Maybe more.
Yeah.
100%.
And what is it? And look, that's why I thought it might be really important to bring up, because if it's the larger nations that are buying it all up, just like crazy, like it's the toilet paper hoarding of vaccine hoarding. I don't need 10,000 rounds of toilet paper, but I'm going to buy it just so you can't have it. Maybe, I don't know what mentality is and where it's coming from, and what the objective is that they're trying to avoid us from. Like, what is it? So yeah, it's had me scratching my head, Mekki, and that's why I came up with those ideas. I can't come up with anything else. I think I'm kind of all out.
Look, I think you have to reduce it to the most likely common denominator.
Occam's razor, right? Yep.
Yeah. Well, but who decides what the simplest outcome is now? At this point, Dave and I do. That's who. Just in case there's any question, it's our show. Do what we want. No, but
we'll use our shut up defense.
Who gains what from which action? Right.
That's right.
What does this thing do? It ostensibly does this. Okay, if we withhold vaccines from these people over there, then we can reduce that population significantly over the next 1 or 2 generations. Maybe maybe faster, maybe a little bit slower. It doesn't matter, but it'll be reduced. There will be refugees. It'll be uncomfortable on this planet for 20, 30 years. 20, 30, 40 years as we come to a new equilibrium. But we always do, right? After World War II, I don't know if you are familiar with this. Berlin was one vast ruin. I mean, you look at pictures. Back in Germany for school, we did a project and we looked at the destruction just in Berlin. I'm talking about just Berlin. I mean, global destruction was much greater, but it was completely destroyed. You go to Berlin today, unless except for a couple of memorial places, it's completely rebuilt. Right? It was done within 20 years, probably, of it being destroyed, and maybe even faster. And that's just what happened. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. nuclear blasts. People live there now. They live there. People are living in those cities. Right? There's some monuments left, but you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know there was a nuclear blast that killed 100,000 people in each of those cities.
It basically ground the whole city off at the ground level. Yeah.
Well, pretty much. But my point is that time, heals most wounds, and people move on. So as we experience this drop in births as we go forward, people will just adjust to it. It's just a new normal. All right. I mean, Solaris' show just before us, they talked about Australia just at the end very briefly when Solaris mentioned that we were coming on, and her guest said, "It's a terrible thing what they're doing in Australia at the moment." Look, it's really a great test of what a population will take. We have had a city in lockdown, a city of I think 2 or 3 million in Melbourne, for 3 months. No city in the world has ever been locked down this way ever.
Yeah, it's the longest one in history. Yeah,
right? Not even during the Blitz in London. Okay, nothing like it. And people
sit, sit. Good job.
And look, I've my teams are all over Australia. I've got people working in teams in Melbourne as well. And we speak on a regular basis. When they were in lockdown, I introduced the virtual drinks on a Friday, etc. But those guys, it was tough. They weren't allowed of the house. They weren't allowed of the house. In China, interesting enough, they welded the doors shut.
Yeah.
Some of the apartment blocks, right? And they're not coming out. But in Australia, people voluntarily stay at home. So how much will a population take? How much is a population willing to accept and give up in order to answer a perceived or real threat, be it health or otherwise? Now,
everyone that I know, Mickey, is calling it an obedience test.
It is 100%.
Absolutely.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
And what would and we've seen, even despite to your point, the lockdowns for 3 months, there were there were protests there, and that's about the level they got to. They didn't get to burning down the city, right, in protest, and people were locked up for it, and the police were policing it. They were locking people up. They were hitting them with nightsticks, and they were dragging them across the ground and, cramming them in jail cells and giving them a record of civil disobedience. And disobeying a federal health order is the other one. So you've got to say that's with you for life. There's no court session that can be, they can just wipe that clean, right? That's got to be the challenge for people, I think, in that civil obedience. How obedient can we be during a lockdown? Gee, imagine all the world leaders saying, "Hey, we did it for 3 months. You try it."
Yeah.
Woo! Winners.
See, but you know what the funny thing is? They were not just in Australia, but in the UK and other places. The politicians or the people like really high up, right? They were the ones that are breaking these quarantine conditions. They were the ones. Oh no, I'm different. Or
that's
I'm so
right.
sorry.
That's an oligarchy, right?
Yeah, because you know what? There's a rule for us, like all of us, all of us unwashed, except of course for the elite that might be listening. You guys are okay, and then there's a rule for everybody, for the elite, for the top guys, for the power brokers, for the people that are actually in charge, right? And make no mistake, it's what it is. If nothing else, this is what Epstein showed us, right? The sweetheart deal that Epstein got initially back in Florida. Right?
Where he had day release and he could go about his business.
Oh, it was unheard of.
He just slept in the jail. Yeah.
Unheard of. And then then he committed suicide. Yeah, I'm sure he
did. Yeah.
Good luck with that.
All of it.
But the point is that, see, people, this is really coming down to the crux of it, Dave. Because you have this, I had this conversation with people. I don't really have these conversations. I talk to you on the radio and that's it. Because you say these things and then people look at you. That would never really happen, Matthew. That couldn't happen. People just wouldn't stand for it. Are you blind?
But it's happening.
It's happened, exactly. We're living in it. We're living. ING, it's gerundive, meaning continued action, going forward. Okay? Yeah? It's even grammar is not lying to us here. It's a fundamental state of mind that they have as opposed to us. Their fundamental state of mind is I do whatever I want. Yeah. Aleister Crowley said this: "Thou shalt do what thou want, and that shall be all of the law, or that shall be the whole of the law." And Aleister Crowley was a practitioner of magic back in the 19th century. A lot of adherents, the Templar Orders Orientalis, etc., was quite effective. A lot of secret societies built around him and his teachings and magics. Aleister Crowley, look him up, and he said, "Well, do whatever you want. That should be all of the law. All of the law. For the people in the know, you do whatever you like."
Mm-hmm.
And that's where blood magic and black magic and all these other things go. If you think it's all nonsense, look again. Look again. The power of the mind is unlimited, right? And they have beaten us down with fear so much that our minds are so closed off and boxed in that we can barely manage, if any manifestation, only the manifestations they want us to actually put out into the world. And I put a Facebook post up, and you're the only person that did anything to it, Dave. You like it, which I appreciate. There are two phrases which are ingrained in America: ordo ab chaos and e pluribus unum. Now they both mean translated order out of chaos and out of many one. And I urge you all to think about it this way. Think about it in the context of quantum decoherence. Okay, we are creating their reality every day, every second, every moment. We are creating their reality because we don't know any better. We are creating their reality.
Mm-hmm.
We're collapsing the limitless possibilities, the chaos, if you will, of the quantum world into the one outcome, which is our reality for them, every moment.
Yes, 100%. And Becky, now that our audience and listeners' minds have been exploded and they've got to scrape up all the goop, like in Pulp Fiction, when then you got the cleaner, what can we do?
Well, listen to show number 500, or go back to the full hundreds, like
the prior ones.
Yeah, 100, 200, 300, 400. If I go to show 400, that's got the latest updates on what to do and how to get out of it, how to get out of this prison, really. Because that's what this show is about. For 10 years, we've been trying to, with others, of course, to enlighten people, to make people question and think. Now, if you're listening to this station and you're already on the bandwagon, which is great, but leave your prejudices and preconceived ideas behind. Everything is connected. You think this what's happening right now is just a completely unconnected fact to anything else? No, it's one string.
Look, before. It's a sad note, but I did want to mention it, that we lost a friend of the show. We interviewed him twice, and it's quite sad to hear that Clifford Stone passed away. And if you're interested, we have, like I said, 2 shows, part 1 and part 2. He did them week to week, back to back, and yeah, it's quite sad. Also, another UFO researcher passed away in the last week since our last show. I think, look, don't quote me on it, but it seems like the world's getting faster and these deaths are increasing, and we don't want to see any other of our guests pass away through anything. So if you're listening and you've been a guest of ours, watch out for that slippery floor and the open windows. And I've got a mate of mine who's normally a listener of the show, and he's been offline now for nearly 9 days. And I don't know. Really? Yeah, and I don't know where he is.
Oh,
anyway,
donate if you can. Sorry, guys, the music is here. Don't go away. We come back with Tesla and the Electric Universe.
And we're going to stop the stream and we're going to kick it back off again if you're listening on YouTube. We'll catch you.